Today we are at a very interesting state in our economic progress. And as we talk about skills and growth and the focus on growth and development, we need to reevaluate where we are. We are a big country. So we need to understand that we can't compare with the Netherlands, Finland, and Norway, or Singapore. We are a big country. The only country we can compare with is China. Because China has gone through a similar process. It has the same historical background. In 1978, China was just behind us at about $150 billion in GDP, and today they are 10 trillion, and today we are 2.23 trillion. They've grown at 9.9% a year from 1978 till 2015, and we have grown at 6.7% a year from 1991 when we opened up till 2015. They've grown at an average of 3% per year more than us, and for a very important reason. Women make up possibly about 45% total workforce. Workforce participation by women in China is something like 80-85%, whereas in India is 24%. And when Mao took power in 1949, he said women hold up half of heaven. So there was equality between genders, and that is what has made China's growth so very tremendous. And I think we need to understand that very well when we come out of the strategy. We are about $2.23 trillion in GDP. Our PPP, Purchasing Power Parity GDP value, is about 6.7 trillion. So we are the third largest economy in the world. We are the third largest economy in the world. And we've got to keep it in mind when we look at our strategy and see what we ought to do. We cannot keep away from the rest of the world. 50% of our GDP is impacted by export-imports. Our exports could be about $450 billion. Imports are $450 billion. Exports are $325. And then we also have a service export of something like about $160, $170 billion. And overall, it is about 50-55% of GDP. So we're closely interlinked with the world. We have a revenue challenge in this country. Of all the money that we get in India, 27% goes to pay interest. So we have a deep challenge. So we don't have enough money. We are a capital short, labor surplus country. And this is what we ought to do when we talk about our strategy. And if you look forward for the next maybe 20 years, we'll find that by 2025, the population, the age group of 15 to 64, which is the productive part of India, will be the largest in the world. 2 years ago in China, the working age population peaked at 650 million. From 650 million is now coming down. So wages are going up in China. Wages are almost doubled in China in the last maybe 3 to 4 years. Whereas our working age population, I think, is about 495 million. We'll go to 650 million sometime maybe in the next 10, 15 years. And this is very critical for us because if the percentage of young people in the population goes up, we have a deep challenge how to create jobs for them all over this country. And this is extremely critical because this generation of people are very, very different compared to the earlier generation. Is it coming now? Okay. This chart is an important chart. No input. Okay. China's GDP today is 10 trillion. We are 2.23 trillion. But 10 years ago, China's GDP was around $3 trillion. 10 years ago. What does it mean? It means that as the fastest growing economy in the world, in the next 10 years, we will see a huge surge in growth. And this surge in growth can only come in case we are able to get our skill issues sorted out, in case we are able to create jobs for young people, and in case we are going to grow. So if you look at this chart, this is an important chart. This is an extremely important chart because there is great hope for this country. China's growth is now coming down, it's shaking up the world. China has become the factory of the world, but we could be what China is today in 10 years' time. And this is exactly the opportunity that awaits us if we all come together. Look at education profile. I think it's pathetic, just pathetic. Only 9% of our young people, our working age people in the age group of 15 to 59, have a college degree or have a certificate. Of course, to take a degree, you have to be 21 years, so we could discount some part of it. It just means that we have not invested enough in human resources in this country ever since we got freedom. Our literacy rate is 74%, China is 95% plus. We have IITs, we have bad schools. So we have to invest more and more into developing our people's skills in the next 10 years to become much more productive. And let's remember one thing. There's only two things that make a difference between a rich country and a poor country: labor productivity, capital productivity. Our labor productivity is poor. So we have to improve labor productivity. There was a study made by McKinsey 20 years ago to find out the difference between the United States and Japan in terms of capital productivity and labor productivity, and they came to the conclusion that capital productivity in the United States is pretty high, around 13%, whereas Japan is only 4 to 5%, but labor productivity in Japan was higher. And Japanese were able to become richer because the labor productivity was much higher than the United States. So we have to be very focused on what we do. Skills is about jobs, and jobs are about skills. You cannot skill and not create jobs. So that's why I think we've got to be very careful about that. And for the economy to grow at 7 to 9%, which you're targeting, we have to skill our people, and they have to be productive. What is the difference between a person who is able to do X amount of work and a person who is able to do Y amount of work? The difference is a person who is more productive, produce more, can get paid more. Please remember, 150 years ago, the steam engine was invented. When the steam engine was invented, the world got disrupted. Till the advent of the steam engine, India and China by 1820 were the largest economies in the world. We are dependent upon artisans and muscle power. Once the steam engine came, it meant that human productivity went up, and you could produce much more, and people could be paid much more, and Europe became richer, and Great Britain ruled the world. So we got to understand this very clearly. Now, in India, there are more people than available jobs at lower skills level, and there are more jobs than available people at the higher skills level. Now, this is a conundrum that we have to solve. It basically means that the lower level, where jobs are, maybe more, there are more people coming in. That's why if you want a government job, you get millions of people applying. Okay, but they may not have the skills, but they do. But if you have a job in the high-tech industry, you have a job in sophisticated industry, we don't have enough people. So when you do a skill development, we need to focus on that. And then we need to map the skills and the jobs that are coming all over the country. And I think this is very, very, very important for us. For example, if you look at the entire country, and we are not one single country, we are a collection of countries. We are like Europe, but we behave as if we are one single country. We are like Europe, but we behave like a France. We want to control everything from Delhi, and it can't work because this country is just too big. So if you map all the skills that are required in all of the country, map all the industries that are coming up all of the country, you find a big gap. It's extremely give back. If you take Pune, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and maybe Delhi as a high-tech industry, sophisticated industry, mechanized industry, automated industry, 3D printing, robotics, avionics, aeronauticals, everything is coming up. But where are the skilled people? And if you look at other parts of the country, the eastern part and the central part, UP, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and maybe Bihar, where the majority of the Indian population stays, there are no jobs which require high skills. There are no jobs which require low skills. There are no jobs at all coming up in this area. 1 in 2 youngsters in UP is unemployed, maybe unemployable. So you have a situation where there's a huge labor surplus in one area. In the south, there is a labor deficit. And that's why you see migration. And we've got to map this. 20% of the workforce in Kerala comes from Bihar. And my friend who's a Malayali told me, in Kerala, if you don't know Hindi, you cannot get by. Because all the chai wallas, chai shops are all run by the Biharis. The skills are by the Biharis in the hospitality industry. So there's a challenge that's happening. There's a migration happening all over this country. And this is what we got to look at when you look at the skill mapping. Look at this. I think this is an important thing. And this is a solution to our challenges. 18% of GDP is agriculture, and agriculture has 52% of the Indian's population depend on 18% of GDP growing at 3%. That means 48% of a population depends on 82% of a GDP growing at 10%, because 3 and 10, the average could be 7 to 8. Now, the agrarian crisis that we have in this country, farmers committing suicide. Didaji, in my state, Karnataka, 175 farmers committed suicide last month. And in Maharashtra, 2 days ago, a woman farmer burnt herself because she had 5 children and no food. Such great tragedies are happening. The agrarian crisis is not a crisis of agriculture, it's a crisis of jobs. Because land cannot afford 600 million people. The land cannot afford 600 million people. We have to move 300 million people off the land into factories in the next 10, 12 years unless we are able to face this crisis, the great crisis. And there's great anger and frustration in India. And this is going to hurt us, the country, socially. And look at this chart. China has been successful. In China, industry makes up 40% of GDP, whereas in India, agriculture is 18%. So we got to grow our GDP, we got to focus on industry, we got to have labor-intensive industry, we got to move people from the land. We still will produce enough. China, with 30% of its population on land, produces 2 times the food grains we produce. And America, with 1% of its population, produces more than food grains than we do. So we don't require so many people on land. And of 52%, 16% own land. The balance are landless labor, are doing some petty jobs. And they're underemployed, unemployed. And that's the biggest tragedy that's happening in this country. And we're unable to understand why. For the last 10 years, people in agriculture in India came down from 60% to 52%. So we had to accelerate. We need a land acquisition bill. We have to move these people. And unless we do that, this tragedy of farmers committing suicide is going to continue. So we have to follow the China model. And China has moved 300 million people the last 20 years. By the urbanization, China is 51% urban, we are 34% urban. The world is 50% urban, we are still 34% urban. We don't like urbanization. We want to tell people, stay in your villages. Villages are cesspool of communalism. Ambedkar said that in the 1930s. So we have to have a strategy of urbanization. We have a strategy of, creating growth centers all over, especially in the middle of India, where the need is the highest. The challenges are huge. And we got to create a people, skill a people for a global role. We have in the Middle East, we have in Southeast Asia, everywhere, there's a great need for people with skills. And you'll be very surprised in Italy, in the Palma region, the Sikh farmers have become dairy farmers. They resurrected an industry, the dairy farming industry in Italy. All over Europe, farmers, nobody wants to be a farmer. We can export farmers. The whole of Siberia, Ukraine, where there's trouble, unfortunately, farming is a big industry and there are no farmers. So we got to see where the world is short, and we got to work with various countries to send people and skill them to meet the global demand. Because by 2050, we'll be the youngest country in the world, the labor surplus country. Even China won't have labor surplus because China could become poorer before it becomes richer. China had a one-child policy by 1978, and the one-child policy means that 2 children are going to support maybe 8 people or 6 people in their lifetime. And that's a big challenge. Inverted pyramid. We got a right pyramid. China's pyramid is inverted. And so we have to create skills for the world. And then we have 24 million young people coming into the workforce. The data is wrong. It's not 2.4, it's 24 because big numbers scares us. We can't even put the numbers down. 24 million people come in the workforce because 20 years back we produced 25 million babies. 1 million babies died in India out of every year because of child mortality. So 24 come into the workforce every year, out of which 30%, 25% may not want jobs, get married. 75% want jobs. 18 million jobs have to be created. 18 million jobs is almost equal to the population of Australia. We need jobs to be created for these people. Second, we have to mix and match the kind of skills and jobs that are needed. So we have this program called Make in India. Make in India is a fabulous program, but Make in India to succeed, we'll have to look at labor-intensive industries. We're having Make in India in manufacturing, a time when manufacturing is becoming automated. The assembly lines for automobile plants are automated. We have robots doing work. In China, they're building millions of robots. They don't have enough labor, they're building millions of robots. So robots are going to take over in the next 10 years. Work is going to get automated. If Make in India has to succeed, we have to orient towards labor-intensive industries while the need for labor is still required. So we have to have labor reforms, good infrastructure, investment in R&D, blah, blah, blah. Then, what should industry do? These are some of the things that we need now. We need a better apprenticeship program. At Infosys, we got a group of 50 applications in Maharashtra from a person to train them in software. They were all 12th standard fail. And we said we train 30,000 people a year. And we spend 1,200 crores training them. And we can't train them in software. They filed a criminal case against us, which is still in the court. Criminal case. Because they didn't listen to us. And we used to hire 30,000 people a year and train them and spend 1,200 crores. 1,200 crores is more than the total IIT budget those years. So we got to make the apprentice program available to everybody. And skilled people, industry should scale. Anybody who comes to a certificate, we're going to pay 20% more. Why will the person go get a certificate if he doesn't get more money? Because if you get a skill, it means he's more productive. So compared to somebody without a skill, you've got to pay more. So I think FICCI and industry should join together and say, you come with a skill, you pay 20% more. And our industrial policy should change. We are capital short, labor surplus, but we incentivize capital. And many people borrow from the banks, don't pay and become very rich. And we don't have jobs. And they put automatic machines. And we lose our tax revenues. 97,000 crores of tax subsidies goes to people in industry, out of it 35,000 goes for capital investment. We don't have a single clause to incentivize labor, to create jobs. You go to Europe. In Europe, you go to a country and say, I'm going to hire 1,000 people. The Prime Minister will come and meet you, shake hands with you, giving a training grant of a couple of $1 million. Am I right, Andreas? Because they want jobs. Because people vote, machines don't vote. And they're concerned about the constitution. They're concerned about jobs. Here you come and say, I'm going to produce 20,000 jobs. They say, Jan, what is that? I'm serious. I'm serious about that. So we got to focus on labor, not capital. We need people who are going to employ people. We need a tax break for labor, Didaji, 3 times a company's contribution to Provident Fund in ESI, because it's got to be accounted, up to 50,000 rupees per new job for 1 year. It's a very small thing, but we can easily do that because incentivize the creation of jobs. If we incentivize the creation of jobs, the medium, small-scale industry will come up. They create the most jobs. But MSMEs pay 14% interest. They don't get paid by the big industry. They don't have skilled people. They don't have capital, and they create jobs. And we have a policy for industry to give industrial development based upon capital. And, we got to change the entire structure. Then, we got to make sure that with higher skills, we become much more competitive. The Prime Minister heard an industrial meet, Didaji, with all of you to talk about what India can do because of China's slowdown. India has to become more competitive. To become more competitive, you have to increase the productivity of labor. Steel costs 1.4 times what it costs in the rest of the world to produce. We've got to bring down the cost. Our supply chain costs have to come down. Competition has to go down. Friction to business has to reduce. Velocity of business has to go up. And skills have to go up. Thank you very much.